I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Tiffany Mac. Previous guest of the show and buddy Kevin Hale of Shooting from the Lip podcast thought that Tiffany and I would be able to have a very fascinating conversation because he knows both of us and thought we'd make a good match. So that's what this is. Tiffany has her own show called Universal Secrets on kgradb.com. In this episode, we talk a little bit about the coronavirus and the things that are happening right now and the events that are being closed and postponed and all that kind of stuff. And then we delve into this crazy, mysterious virus that she got a few years ago in Greece and how devastating and scary that was. And then we talk about her multiple paranormal and or extraterrestrial encounters. This is one of the more unique episodes of Fascination Street podcast. I've never talked to anybody who has had experiences like this, so it's quite fascinating, and I hope you enjoy it. This was recorded during all the self-distancing due to the coronavirus outbreak. So if that is over by now, woohoo. If not, damn it. But either way, this is my conversation with Tiffany Mac.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street podcast, Tiffany Mac. How you doing today, Tiffany?
I'm great. How are you?
I am wonderful, except that it's raining here. I mean, I guess we're not really allowed to go outside anyway, but...
That's ridiculous. It's gorgeous here. It's almost sunny, or almost sunny. It's almost 70 degrees. My girls have been outside hiking in the woods. I just got in myself.
How nice.
Yeah, we're doing the whole isolation thing by just chilling outside. It's gorgeous.
Well, last weekend we were able to go hiking and, do all that kind of stuff out here because the weather was awesome. And we're supposed to go do it tomorrow, so hopefully the weather will clear up by then. Folks be getting stir crazy around now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been about 6 days for most people.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So, Tiffany, where are you calling me from right now? Where do you live?
I actually live right outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I was born and raised here for the most part, and I've lived quite a few different places, but this is where I call home.
Oh, cool. I lived in Louisville for about a year and a half.
Oh, really?
Well, I guess at the time, technically, it was just outside of Louisville, but while I was living there, the city annexed our neighborhood in.
Oh, yes. Okay. You became part of the metro.
Yes. I don't even remember the names of the streets anymore, and this was only... I've only been back here in Texas for 5 years, and I don't remember.
Gosh.
I mean, I remember the name of the street I was on, but I don't remember any of the highways or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, with the whole coronavirus pandemic, we are totally shutting down a lot of our activities. One of them that you probably know is Thunder Over Louisville, which is one of the largest firework shows in the country. And it's been going on for, 35 years, something like that. So that's the kickoff for the Derby is Thunder Over Louisville. And our Derby has actually been moved back until August. So a lot of those horse racers out there and fans are really upset. A lot of our activities involve different charity work and galas, and all of that is being canceled or pushed back until later in the year. So there is a lot of disruption, not even just the schools closing down and moms and dads having to become teachers in homeschool situations. It's crazy what's actually been going on. So this is new to everybody. It feels sort of like what I would consider maybe a depression state, We haven't seen this in a long time.
It's certainly starting to feel that way. Particularly we're running out of stuff, so we might be seeing bread lines and toilet paper lines soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to stock up and prepare for other things over the past year, feeling a little bit nervous and a little bit more anxious about the state as it is. So I feel that we were more prepared than others, but it's definitely making people antsy.
Yeah, that's the truth. When we lived in Louisville, my wife was working at a company and her office was downtown, overlooking the river. Mm-hmm. And her office was on like, I don't know, like the 22nd floor or something crazy like that. But when Thunder over Louisville was doing their practicing, it was all like right outside her window.
It's nice, huh?
Yeah, so I got to go and just hang out in her office and watch all this craziness happen. Plus, it was a great viewpoint to catch the actual Thunder over Louisville fireworks show and the planes and everything. It was just amazing.
Well, yeah, it's not just the fireworks. You're right. There is an air show associated with it. So all these different pilots and boats and stuff even come through that are like special forces. And we sometimes have the Blue Angels. And I mean, we've had some of those triangular craft, those secret craft occasionally have come through, and it's a really good time for everyone. And then we have the amazing Louisville boat race, which is always entertaining. It's usually only the Belle of Louisville and the Star of Jefferson, but everybody seems to think that it's a great day. It's usually Wednesday. So I guess that's getting postponed too. Called off.
I am a little curious how it's going to work for the Oaks and the Derby. I mean, if horses that are normally used to running in May are going to run in August, isn't that super dangerous for them?
No, I mean, they travel all over the world to go to different derbies and functions and races. So I really don't think, I mean, of course, if you have a horse that trains in California or trains in Texas or trains in Florida, they're used to hotter situations as it is. And most of the time they're doing their racing practices at like 4:00 in the morning, 5:00. So it's not so stressful. So I don't think it'll be a big deal.
Well, that makes sense. So you were born and raised basically in Louisville-ish?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Connecticut, and
ooh, why?
My dad was rebranding and selling Saks Fifth Avenue for British American Tobacco. So we were up there, and it was a great experience. But the whole tobacco industry was up in turmoil as I was growing up. When I came back to Louisville, we had to go through the whole whistleblowing situation in the tobacco industry with Jeffrey Wigand. And they made a whole movie about it called The Insider with Al Pacino and Russell Crowe. So that was entertaining.
Oh, wow. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So a little backstory, folks. Previous guest of the show, Kevin Hale, from the podcast Shooting from the Lip. He thought that Tiffany and I might be able to have a wonderful conversation. So that's where this came from. And so thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your help, sir, as always. Tiffany, how do you know Kevin?
Well, Kevin and I actually had a podcast together. I did a paranormal and ET show with him called the KT Unearthly Show. And we took a break while I was going through my divorce. I didn't want all of the chaos surrounding the paranormal and all this stuff to be involved in my divorce because my kids go to Catholic school. So yeah, I didn't want it to get dirty. And so, I shut that down, and then it's been 2 years and we have reconnected, and now we're doing another paranormal show. It's called Universal Secrets on KGRA, and then we'll also have it on YouTube. And it's going to be a really entertaining show, a little bit more playful than a lot of the shows that you're going to listen to when it comes to ancient aliens and then ghost hunting and things like that. We really do tend to have a lot more fun than the rest of the guys.
Nice. What is KGRA?
KGRA is a paranormal radio show. It's actually a station, and it consists of a lot of the guys and girls that you would see on Ancient Aliens, like Richard Dolan, Jimmy Church, Linda Moulton Howe, John Burroughs. And then we also have Micah Hanks as another podcaster. It's a lot of different really great podcasting shows that encompass a huge field of the paranormal. So I've been with KGRA since 2015. And I've done a multitude of shows with them throughout the years. So I'm glad to be back on it.
Oh, absolutely. And what's the name of this new show again?
Universal Secrets.
Now, is Kevin part of that or no?
Yes, actually Kevin is. And we also have another partner named James Strebel. And Kevin also does a different recording and a different podcast, which is called Beyond the Hangar Doors. And it's consisting of Kevin Hale, Jeremy Ray, and Dwight Equitz. And both of those other guys are on TV as well. It's sort of who's who of the alien ET world and the cryptid world.
Okay. Well, let's jump right in. When did you first become interested in the paranormal, the cryptids, extraterrestrial, that sort of thing?
Well, it started out with me having some really crazy experiences. I saw an object while I was down. I have a condo in Destin, Florida, and it overlooks the ocean. And one night in October, I can't remember if it was 2013 or 14, something like that. I was out on my patio at about 10 p.m., just sort of chilling, and watched this bright light come straight down from the sky. There was no arching. There was no trail. It was not a firework. It literally was a monstrous ball of light that shot straight down over the water. And then once it entered the water, there was like a light that just sort of stretched out around it. And I was so just dumbfounded that I called my mom. She has a condo not very far from me on the Bayside. And so I called her and asked her, what do you think? What did you see it? What was it? And, we're very close to an air base called Eglin down there in the Fort Walton area. And I called the base. Was there anything there? I'm checking on sightings. I'm just asking questions to everybody. And finally, the internet pulled up MUFON, and it's a mutual UFO network. So I was trying to contact anybody and just see if anybody else had seen anything. So my report actually was generated, and I got a phone call from one of their investigators. And he just so happened to be starting up a new show on KGRA. Now, this person ended up to be a very strange character indeed, and ended up stalking me. So that show ended after about maybe 2-3 months. But from that point, I actually was giving different opportunities to work in this field. So I can't say it was a bad experience, because it led me to what we're doing now. So just to go back in history a little bit, I went to UK. I graduated with a broadcast journalism degree in telecommunications and worked for 2 different Fox stations. I did NPR for 2 years. And I think that radio was sort of my niche, and the TV aspect of it always got me flustered and scared and had stage fright. But the radio part really felt more comfortable. So fast forward a few years, and 9/11 occurs. I had graduated from UK, and I was just sort of trying to find my place. So 9/11 occurs, and I end up going overseas. I stayed in Paris for a while. I stayed in the south of France for a while, and I ended up on the island of Crete. Well, after 3 days of being there on just a little quick vacation, I was offered a position to work on the U.S. Naval Base and a NATO base as a contractor for the Department of Defense. This is one of the multitude of situations in my life that just seemed to prop in my lap. I really did just have it fall in my lap. So I ended up working on both bases throughout the years. I was there for almost 4 years. And it was an amazing learning experience. It was definitely a time for growth. But I also believe that it was a time for these ET experiences to blossom as well. So my job on the NATO base had to do with acquiring buildings and sort of converting them into billeting or housing for our military. And on the NATO base, it wasn't just our U.S. military. It was actually Dutch and French and German and Greek. So there was a big group of people that started to flood the area right after 9/11. We became the hot spot. We were like the last stop in before they hit Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, and all those places. And then we were the first step out. So, not only did I see our men and women as they were getting ready to go into combat, but I also saw them coming back from combat. And me being a young girl, I would sit up there. I had my own space. There was nobody in my building. I ended up having a lot of people come through and just sit and talk and chat. And I became like a sister or like a cousin or like a friend, or, I became that stationary person who they could chat with. So during those times, I had a lot of shifts that were, midnight to 8 in the morning. And during those times, there were periods where I would get to work and it seems like maybe 20 minutes later and it would be 8 a.m. So I'm like missing time. Like, where did the time go? What happened? I didn't fall asleep. What the hell just happened? So that was strange.
That happened more than once?
It happened a lot of times. I ended up getting to the point where I was so freaked out that I would bring one of our Belgian shepherds. We had these shepherds that were very respectable when it comes to training. Nobody would want to get around them. They were pretty terrifying. So my male, Miko, he was about 140 pounds. So I would bring him to work with me when I did midnight shifts. And then I would feel a little bit more comfortable. Nobody would come in who wasn't supposed to be there. And that was cool. But after all of these strange nights, years later, I come to find out that those missing episodes of time may have been more than just me potentially falling asleep. I really do feel like they were connected to these ET experiences that I've encountered over the past 10 years. I think it's all sort of been building throughout the years.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Guess what, Streetwalkers? The gear is here. A bunch of you have been asking for quite some time, and now finally it's here. Head over to FascinationStreetPod.com and check out the gear tab. There, you'll find all kinds of FSP items to tickle your fancy. T-shirts, coffee mugs, sticker packs, pins, buttons, coasters, and my personal favorite, for just $5 you can get one of those weird little phone handle pop thingies. So head to FascinationStreetPod.com and show the world that you're proud to be a streetwalker. Special thanks to my good buddy Stephen O'Reilly from the Bar Star Podcast for these dope drum beats. Check out Steve's work at O'Reilly Drums on Instagram or search Stephen O'Reilly on YouTube.
Let's get back into it.
I do want to take a step back real quick, and it sort of relates to today. I have a lot of anxiety when it comes to what's going on with the coronavirus, because while I was in Greece, I somehow acquired a virus, and it was deadly. There were 12 other people on the island who had the virus. We were all in the same private hospital. The others were Germans, from what I gathered. I was an American, and the other people died. And the hospital talked to my family and said, look, you need to figure out how you're going to get her body back. I went down to like 94 pounds.
Now, when you say the other people died, like the other 11 people?
The other 12, other than me. I was the 13th.
So you're the only one who didn't die who had this?
I'm the only one that survived, yes.
Do you know the name of that virus?
No, I don't. I don't have a clue.
Interesting.
All I know is that it was so bad. I was only maybe 107 pounds to begin with, and I went down to like 94 pounds in a matter of days. I was in the hospital for 9 days, and it was probably the scariest time of my life because I still didn't know the language well enough to be in a situation where I'm stuck in a hospital bed for 9 days with these people who, most of them, they were villagers. I lived on the island of Crete. So the situation wasn't fantastic. You know, my mom and my stepdad had some of the best insurance that you can have. I had, you know, international medical. I had all of this stuff. And with all the money in the world, they could not get me to Athens. They're like, please fly her to Athens. We'll pay for everything. And they're like, we're not letting her off the island. She can't go. And they really just said, you need to figure out how you're going to get her body back. That day, the 8th day, you know, my mom was she was struggling trying to get flights to come see me, and she couldn't do it. She has an international doctor, and what they do is they look at what's going on your location. They look at different viruses, different contagions and things like that. And they come up with some kind of packet of medications that you can gather and take. So they overnighted this packet of drugs, which I do remember included Cipro and some antivirals and antibiotics and whatever he concocted. So they overnighted it to the base. And my host family actually brought it to me. And they said, you're going to die in the hospital. Do you want to die at home or do you want to die in the hospital? And I was like, I want to go home. I want to be back in my room. I don't want to be in this hospital bed. So I signed myself out. They allowed me to sign myself out as long as I didn't try to leave. And I went to the house and that was it. So we sort of had to make a pact. And the host family that I was with was a very respected and had a lot of power in the community and a lot of power within the government and the military. So they really did push for me to get the best help that they could. And it was just really dim. There was really no light to the situation. So I went home and I took the packets of pills and ended up slowly, gradually getting to the point where I could get out of bed. And they ended up getting me a flight back home. And I went into emergency surgery. And I had abscesses throughout my throat that had to be fixed. And it was one of the scariest experiences of my life. So this sort of brings in the ET aspect also. So while I was in the hospital, the strangest things happened. At night, middle of the night, somebody would come to get me and take me down into the basement, and they would put hoses down my throat and like suction with this horrible suction. And I would see blood just gushing through this clear hose, and I couldn't do anything about it. And it was not like a normal procedure. Who does this stuff? Who does this kind of thing in the middle of the night with nobody else there? And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Now, was I really in the hospital during that situation? I don't know. Was I experiencing a different type of procedure? I don't know. But I do remember having those experiences. And during the day, I would ask why they did it. And they'd just look at me like, what are you talking about? So it was very scary. So anyways, yes, I survived, but it does bring me back to today with the coronavirus. I had this virus, not the coronavirus, but I had a virus that was very, very crazy. It was nuts, and it almost killed me, and it did kill other people. So, and there was only one baby that I knew that was born on the island. And I feel really bad because I did see the baby. It was born in the hospital that I was staying in. And within 3 days, the baby contracted some kind of virus, and they ended up shipping the mom and the baby to Athens, but the baby did die. And it was very upsetting to me. So what it had, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if it was connected.
So these abscesses that you had all down your throat, that was caused by the virus?
Supposedly it was. But when I think back, I think maybe it happened because of the tubes that they were shoving down my throat. But they acted like they didn't do that. So I don't know.
And so the stuff that was coming out of that tube, you said there was a lot of blood and other things? Or just blood?
Yeah, it just looked like blood and gunk. I don't know.
And you don't know where that stuff went?
All I know is I was choking the entire time. I couldn't breathe and just choking.
And you don't know where that tube led to? Like, where did that stuff go?
I have no idea.
Interesting. Do you have any idea how you came into contact with this virus?
No, I don't. Like I said, the other guys or girls were tourists. So it could just very well be something that was in the community that we didn't have immunity to.
Interesting. And how old were you when all this happened?
About 24, I believe, when that happened. So, I was young and I was strong and I was eating healthy and I was doing good things. I was not a sickly person.
Were you single at that time?
I had a boyfriend at the time on the island.
He was on the island?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We all worked on the same base.
And so he did not get this virus?
No. Nobody in his family got the virus. But the mother and my boyfriend were from Greece, and the father was American Air Force. But they lived there for most of their life.
Gotcha. Back to that giant bright light that you saw off of the coast of Destin.
Mm-hmm.
You said that it came straight down.
Yes.
Did you say that it went into the water?
Yeah.
Like actually into the ocean and like kept going down?
Yeah. That does bring you back to the whole ET thing. But like I said, we were close to a military base, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck it is. And this is after my life around the military. So I saw a lot of things on the base. I saw a lot of things around the base. So I'm not very surprised by most things. This was surprising. And I would consider it, from what I know now, to be an unidentified submerged object. Yes, it was a UFO, but it was also a USO. It's like, what in the world can go from the stars down and then just go into the water? I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. It was amazing, shocking.
Did you say it was also a USO?
Yes,
What is that?
unidentified submerged object.
I'm sure you did some research, a lot of research. Are there other sightings of a USO?
Yeah, there are. I'm not an expert on it. It's not my
Sure.
area of expertise, but I do know that a lot of them occur. So, and there's been a lot of missiles or what seem to be look like missiles coming from the water going straight up. So I don't know.
Do you still have any dealings with or around military bases?
Other than me living in two places, like I said, I have a place down in Destin, which is right near the Air Force Base. But, you know, my grandfather was in the Strategic Air Command of the Air Force, and his oldest sister actually claimed to have seen a UFO in little beings. And that would have been probably around the turn of the century. So, you know, 120 years ago, 118 years ago, my great aunt or whatever she was actually witnessed something. And you know, it was just sort of a story that had been passed down. So a lot of people actually wonder if there's a connection between military and experiencers or abductees. And I would have to say that with my family, there's a connection there. I feel like all of this was sort of planned out by my grandfather's involvement in the military and intelligence. I think that there was a plan.
Now, do you think that whatever happened to you in the basement of that hospital or wherever you went, do you think that that was involvement by extraterrestrials?
Looking back, I do feel like it's a possibility. You know, in my past 10 years of experience, when I was pregnant with my first child, that's when I first started having conscious experiences with these beings. Not just one being, not one type of being, but multiple types of beings. I feel like something happened when I was pregnant that sort of activated this connection, and they became very interested in what was going on with me or with my family. Back along my whole line, there's always been experiencers, and my family, all of the women in my family have claimed to have seen these different entities and things like that. And it's sort of just been sort of a family lore. But once I had my daughter, things really, really sped up when it comes to the experiences. And over the past year and a half, it's been extraordinary. It's gone from, you know, a few visits to me moving in with my fiance, he's a believer. He's a skeptic, but he also wants to come out and find a real reason for things. So when I moved in with him, we started videoing everything. So every night I had 4 cameras, one from each corner of the room, and it had audio and visual and night vision and stuff like that. So we recorded 24 hours a day for a year. And I was having experiences almost every single night. And it got to the point where I would wake him up and I'd say, okay, they're here. And it would be like a portal would open up occasionally, or these beings would just be in the room or whatever. And I would tell him the situation, you know, trying to get it out and let him know what was going on. So he would ask questions like, what do they look like? Where are they? What are they doing? What are they wanting? And, you know, we would go through this whole thing every single night that they appeared. I would tell him what's going on. And we would look back at the cameras, and most of the time it was just me telling and looking, and you could see all of that. But there were some times when the cameras would go haywire and just cut out at like 3 a.m. And then they would come right back on after a second or 2 seconds. And then there were other times where there would be orbs flying around the room like crazy. And there would be, you know, no fan or no air movement. But all of a sudden they would just go nuts, and I would react, or the dogs would react. And there were other times where, you know, even he would have secondary reactions to these experiences. One example was that I had this, this is funny. So there was this portal that opened in the wall, and I see this little black man standing in the corner with a little captain's hat on, and he's doing something on some kind of, it looked like maybe a computer or something. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a little black guy in the corner, and he's got a captain's hat on, and he's fiddling with something. As soon as I pointed at him, the guy looks at me, and my fiance jumps up. He's like, where is he? And so he got out of bed and headed toward the corner. And I said, no, stop. And there was like this laser beam that came out and like shot on his body. And I said, no, stop, don't. They're going to get you. And he's like, nobody's going to get me. I mean, he's 6'4". He's like, let him get me. I'll dare him. So anyways, he goes towards it and everything starts to vanish and go away. And I said, okay, it's gone. So he lays back down. And about an hour later, he wakes up and his left arm is completely numb. And he feels like he's having a heart attack and his face is on fire. His whole body feels like he's burning up, like he got an extreme sunburn. So he's like, I think you need to take me to the hospital. And I said, we're going to have to call 911. I can't even drive. I'm like freaked out still. And he took, an aspirin and some water and, tried to lay back down, but it took him a long time. He really did feel like he was dying. He was going to have a heart attack and die. And he finally started to calm down. But situations like that happen with us. And I think that what they're trying to do is see why he's so protective. I don't think they've ever seen that kind of protective nature, especially not in my life. This is all new. He is responding to what I'm saying, and they're having these conscious experiences, these interactions. And I think they're interested in that. I think they're interested in seeing the relationship that he and I have. Even though he doesn't see them, he is reacting to what I'm saying in relation to them. So I think that's very interesting.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, if you're like me, quarantine or not, you and your family are looking for new things to do together that don't involve staring at a screen. I have the perfect solution. It's a new trivia game called You Know It, and it's a blast and you can try it for free. You Know It was created by John Sylvain, one of the hosts of the Nooner podcast on Kevin Smith's Smodcast podcast network. And since I'm a fan of that podcast, I signed up for an early copy when John launched his Kickstarter campaign. Really, I just wanted to be supportive, but my family and I played the game and we loved it. Days later, everybody kept saying how fun it was. It's a very simple game. The rules are even simpler than Trivial Pursuit, but there's a lot of strategy to it as well, and the questions are fun and interesting and sometimes hilarious. And all of the questions have two parts. So maybe you don't know the first part, but maybe you know the second part, or vice versa, like this one. What name is shared by a California NBA team and a California NHL team? The Kings. They're not all easy like that, but some of them are. There's wild cards and strategy and stealing and even consequences for getting an answer wrong. One of my favorite parts about this game is that there's 3 questions on each card, 3 rounds plus maybe a tiebreaker for each game. Like when me and my family played, there was 4 of us, and it took 45 minutes to an hour, and we only used 6 cards, and there's so many cards. We could play this game forever. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to be drinking to play this game, but me and my family were, and I tell you what, it raises the fun level to 11. I highly recommend you try it, and you can do that for free by going to youknowitthegame.com, all one word, no spaces, and you can download and print a starter pack for free. There's also more cards available for science and sports, and even a special Generation Z pack. And if free isn't cheap enough for you, Streetwalkers can get 30% off on all other downloadable packs by using the discount code FSTREET at checkout. Once again, that's youknowitthegame.com, all one word, no spaces, and use the discount code FSTREET at checkout for 30% off all other downloadable packs. And if I'm being honest, Streetwalkers, I'm a little upset that I only got 1 copy of this game. My kids are adults, and they deserve a copy of this game so they can play with their friends too. Remember, the game is called You Know It, and it's a blast.
Let's get back into it.
Now, over your lifetime, I'm sure you don't know for sure, but just ballpark, how many instances or contacts or situations like that do you think you've had?
Well, just in the past year and a half, I would say that I've had at least every other night. So there's 180 or so. I sort of started this CE5 group. It's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. We started about 5 years ago here in Louisville. And there's a few different women that are involved in this program. We all sort of started through MUFON and got connected that way. Anyways, we've kept a regular meeting, and it's been really interesting because we have different people who have sort of different roles and different jobs and different gifts, and we all sort of work together. And they were like, you need to be journaling and you need to write it down. And I'm like, there's no freaking way I would do that. I can't do it. It's too much. It would be a huge book and half of it would probably be nonsense. And I never wanted it to be used against me. Of course, after my divorce now, this has been 2 years and I really don't care. I've gotten to the point where, the reality is overwhelming to me. And I feel that there's a lot of people out there who can benefit from the knowledge that, you know what, I know you think you're crazy. I know your neighbors, you can't talk to them, your friends, you can't talk to them, but it is happening and it's happening fairly regularly. And a lot more people are waking up to this. It's been pushed in the public knowledge for years. We've been, bombarded with alien movies and TV shows. We've been bombarded for 20 years. So it is true. It is true. Even though it sounds absurd, a lot of times it's true.
Wow. Now, you only recently decided to come forward and share some light on these experiences. Why now?
Like I said, I do feel that my experiences really amped up. And I feel like they amped up for a reason. I feel like I need to share. My kids do go to a Catholic school, and I was raised Catholic. But, I hope that this doesn't have any kind of repercussion for them school-wise. We'll see how that goes. If anybody listens to my show, I might be screwed, but it is what it is. So, I do push them to believe in God or whatever you want to call it.
Interesting. How often does Universal Secrets come out?
Well, we just started. We've only had 2 shows under the paranormal Universal Secrets. So we are going to try to air every other week. A new show coming out on Wednesday nights on KGRA.
And how can people find KGRA?
Well, you can just go to your internet and type in kgra.com. And I believe it's actually KGRA-DB radio, something like that. But you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter.
And if somebody was to go to KGRA, do you say
DB, I believe.
DB.com. If somebody was to go to there, every other Wednesday, your show would, I guess, be live?
No, we don't have live shows. We actually do pre-record.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And we're going to be rotating. So every week there will be a new show, but it may be Beyond the Hangar Doors or our paranormal aspect of the whole thing. But Beyond the Hangar Doors is actually the ET UFO version. So ours will sort of coexist with that.
Gotcha. What do you hope to get out of this show? Like, why are you doing the show?
Your show?
No, your show.
Okay. I'm like, okay. I just want people to feel that they're not insane. I want people to have a way to hear us, listen to our guests, and know that there are strange things in this world that we can't understand and that we can't really explain. We don't have an answer to a lot of these mysteries, but I feel that, it benefits us. It's interesting, it's stimulating, and it's also entertaining.
Very cool. Now, do you have guests, or what do y'all talk about on the show? How does the format work?
Well, we do have new guests each time, and we're trying to rotate the subjects. So some of the things that we're going to try to have up in the next few weeks are discussions on cults and mind washing or brainwashing, mind control, maybe some prepping shows. There's a lot of talk about stocking up on food and getting water and how you would get fresh water. So we're going to try to do some prepping shows with what you need to protect your home and how to protect your family from what's going on in the world, So we'll see. There's always going to be ghost stories and talk about Bigfoot. There's going to be some fun stuff coming up in the future.
Gotcha. Tiffany, where can people find you on social media?
Well, right now I've been kicked off Facebook.
Why?
Because I had a foul word and then I had China.
Are you serious?
This is the third time I've been kicked off for a foul word and then China. So you're not allowed to say that.
Wow.
Not allowed. I was like, they're infringing on my freedom of speech. I was like, let them try to take my guns. Ha ha ha.
So fowl is like turkey is a fowl, a chicken is a fowl. So you're just like turkey China, and they're like, you're out.
Not necessarily that kind of.
Gotcha. Well, Facebook aside, are you on other platforms?
Facebook, Tiffany Mac, and then we're on Universal Secrets podcast on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter, Tiffany Mac _ET.
Gotcha.
I do have an Instagram page too, Tiffany Mac.
Okay, cool. Everybody, as you know, I always love to ask the guest and watch them struggle, but it doesn't really matter because scroll down and all of those social media tags will be in the show notes. I just like to watch the guest struggle to come up with it. It's like trying to ask somebody for their own phone number nowadays. They're like, I don't know.
What is it? Yeah, I don't know. Here, can I send it to you?
Well, Tiffany, as we're heading out, is there anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I will tell you a funny story about my daughter. So when she was about 2 years old, she started walking at 7 months and talking at about 13 months. And at 2 years old, she was seeing these things in her room and she called them the little things. And I didn't quite understand what they were. Of course, I'm trying to talk to a 2-year-old and I say, what are they? And she said, they're there and there and there and there. And she's pointing. And I said, well, what do they look like? And she's like, they're little circles. And I said, well, what color are they? And she's like, different colors. And I said, okay. So I found some pictures of some orbs that are flying around rooms. And I said, is this what it is? She goes, this. And I said, okay, so that's what she's seeing. And I said, well, what do they do? And she looks down at her veins on her wrist. And she goes, you see these, Mommy? And I said, yes. She goes, those are my veins. And I was sitting here, I'm dumbfounded. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, what about them? She goes, they go inside and into my blood and check it to see if I'm okay. And I'm in shock. First of all, I can't see these things. And then she's telling me this whacked out story about what they're doing. And I said, well, do they do that to Mommy? And she said, no, silly. They already have yours.
Oh, snap.
Yes. So I have that on video. I was talking to her because she was talking about all these things. So I actually have that recorded and it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Whitley Strieber. He's an author. He wrote Communion.
Oh, I'm familiar with the book.
Okay. So I spoke with him about it and I showed him the videos and he said that his son had seen the same thing when he was little. And he actually called them the doctors, which is sort of funny because they're like these little things, not grays. No, we're not talking about gray aliens. We're talking about just these little things like little orbs. They have a purpose though. And what their purpose was sort of medical, like he said, there is the only thing he can relate to. But I've come to hear that a lot of experiencers have children who are also having experiences. So I do believe that it is a genetic program. I think that it's hereditary. I think whatever they're doing, they're following us. They're following us down the line.
I guess you could look at that a couple of different ways, right? Maybe your lineage is chosen for something.
Well, speaking of that, I am Rh negative. So if anybody needs to come and get me and use my blood, they probably already have that information anyway. But I'm always careful about that. There's no purpose for it being careful. It's already been out there. So
what is Rh negative? What is that?
Well, the numbers vary, but what I've seen is that it's about 4% of the Earth's population that has Rh negative blood, and that's the rhesus negative. Most people have A positive, B positive, O positive, or AB positive, or whatever. I have A negative blood, which means that I can't receive blood from a positive person. I can give blood to a positive person, but I can't accept it. So what happens is when you get pregnant, it's mostly more critical for the woman because if you are Rh negative as a mother and your partner has positive blood, your baby, the fetus, will potentially be rejected because it's seen as an alien or a foreign body. It's not of that body. So it causes a lot of abortions. So back in the day when they asked you to go and give blood and check your blood before you got your marriage license, that was the reason, because if you had a female who was Rh negative, you would not be able to procreate and reproduce with them. It makes it a lot more difficult. The woman ends up having a lot more miscarriages and things like that. So now they've sort of overcome that aspect by giving a shot called Rogam. And that is what sort of helps prevent that spontaneous abortion. And it sort of shuts your immunity down so that you don't abort the baby. So I have to take Rogam shots when I get pregnant.
Wow. Hey, I wonder if there's any correlation between the, did you say Rh negative?
Rh negative. There is. And, there's a guy, his name is Nick Redfern. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he does a lot of these paranormal and cryptid shows and has written tons of books on it. One of them is called Bloodline of the Gods, Unravel the Mystery of the Human Blood Type to Reveal the Aliens Among Us. And he actually was on one of my shows. And one of the things that was very interesting had to do with Bud Hopkins. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Okay. So Bud Hopkins did a lot of investigations, and he started talking to a lot of abductees. And one of the things that they were talking about was tagging, tracking, and taking something. So a lot of it had to do with the abductees were being tagged or implants inserted or just being followed. So it's pretty interesting that a lot of these people have been Rh negative. And so the bloodline supposedly for Rh negative people all goes back to one region of Basque country in the south of France. And it goes back to one specific family. It literally is a way to track one group of people, and I'm a descendant. So I don't know. It's interesting.
It's fascinating even.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Tiffany Mac, thank you so much for making this time and taking this time to hang out with us on Fascination Street and let us get to know you a little bit better. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the invitation.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Thank you again, Tiffany, and you have a great rest of your day. And tell Kevin I said what's up.
I will. Thank you, Steve, so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
As always, thanks for listening, Streetwalkers. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter at FascinationSTPD, on Instagram at Fascination Street Pod. Follow the podcast page on Facebook at Fascination Street Podcast. And of course, you can always email me at fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and rate us on iTunes. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.